this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill
Wait
no
a
one.
second.
No.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings, everyone.
Yes.
I'm trying to do this in a more of a podcast format. That's why you're looking at the vlogcast thing. And while we're doing this, it makes it a little bit easier. But welcome to what we watched for January 2021. We are shaping this up. We kind of were, it's weird because we started doing this. It's actually kind of interesting, the history of how we did this. At first, we were just like, whenever we get together, we would just talk about what we saw when we would take walks, because we would get together, we're going to watch some stuff, so we'd take a walk to get food, and while we were doing the walk, we would catch up on what we'd been watching over that time, and it was kind of cool. It was like, that's there. So then we decided to make it a part of the vlogcast when it was more of a podcast format, as opposed to the discussion format like it is now. And then we went away with it for a while because it was taking a long time, and I way stretched us thin with number of shows and stuff that we were doing. We had the show on all the desks. We had a book release show. We had a CD release show. We had a lot.
Well,
of
the
stuff.
CD release lasted about a week?
Yeah, because it was just too much.
Too. Okay.
But if we had a lot more viewers, and I was making money off of this channel to where I didn't work nights, then yeah, I probably would be there. And if we were both making money on this channel, I'm sure Jake would also probably spend some time working on this channel too.
Oh yeah.
On that, because it would be we all would do stuff that we got for pay. But this is more of a hobby at the moment. We just have to cut back. So we're evolving. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to cover some of the stuff that we did for Inside Movies Galore. We're going to do that first. I'm just going to list those. Then list the animu that we did at the end of January. And then we'll come back and discuss as we have per date. So January was accidentally scary. That was the theme. The only theme month of the year.
Well,
it was technically going to be Tammy's month, but there's still that debate whether she wanted to be a full member or not. And going on and to be a full member, a lot of it is based off of, are you willing to do stuff, that watch stuff out of your comfort zone? And that's always been a debate whether she was or not. But she could still have her birthday covered.
But I may have scared her off with Gosford Park.
Yeah. So January 4th was Never Ending Story. And again, good film. January 11th's coverage was The Secret of Nem. And Dave hosted Never Ending Story. Dane hosted Secret of Nem. Then January 18th show, I hosted Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That was a long discussion. But I still felt like I kept it reasonably reined in. We didn't meander. It was it was very solid. A lot of facts in there. Then on the 25th, Tammy's birthday was there. She and Dave kind of co-hosted. We had Dragonheart. And we had The Tingler. So, what did you think of any of those films? Anything that you wanted to say about any of that?
Well, as you pointed out, we definitely had some lengthy discussions on a couple of these. I think most of my opinions were pretty well represented in those discussions. For the most part, I liked all the films. I remember I was kind of the odd one out on Neverending Story. I was kind of the least impressed. But with the others, it was pretty fun. And don't forget, of course, we also had our Animu, the Count of Monte Cristo Genkutsuo, which was that was a good discussion.
Oh, I
We
was
had
leaving
fun.
that for you to say, so you know.
Aha. Well, I know. Well, we had fun with that. It was good times.
Dave picked that one, and good pick for that, Dave.
Yep. Although we chose it by voting, and it just happened to come out on top, so that was a good one.
Yep, actually, and our discussion at the end of this month, which I need to get started on, it's going to be interesting. So, and that was one that I put in, so I was kind of glad.
So, are we doing the other two general discussions right now?
We did a Bad Ben discussion for the channel, which you can watch that. And then for Mo's channel, we did an anime discussion for
Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind.
So I think those were the other two.
Yep. And that was good times. Definitely check that out. That was a good discussion, I
What's
think.
the name of Mo's channel again? I'm so used to Drunken Master
Retro Cult
Studios.
Video, I think it is.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Retro Cult something. Home Video or Retro Cult Video?
I think it's Retro Cult Home Video, yeah.
I always just end up typing in Full Moon Madness and then I get it.
Definitely, if you're into Full Moon, the company, then yeah, he's your guy.
So those are all the ones that we actually had general discussion on.
Right.
So, actually, why don't we start with one that we both watched on the first?
The very early
film of the year.
part, first film of the year. Thanks a lot.
It's going to shape up our entire year. It's a horror film called Censor. It's during the video Nazis period of the UK. And this person whose job it is to censor films
Right.
keeps hearing about this one particular film and filmmaker. And things start to get out of hand. Now, I need to rewatch it because I was drunk and tired, but it looked interesting enough.
Yeah. It was okay. It was okay. It was there. I'm actually going to cover another film on this list from that year that may be even worse, but it was not, I mean, it wasn't a terrible film. It was kind of there. And it was one of those movies that might have been decent if it stuck the landing, but it really unraveled at the end. So, yeah. So, am I going next or you?
Yeah, well, that's all I got for the first.
Okay, so to get away from or to move on into 2022 with the top film of 2020, even though it didn't come out until 2021, I finally got around to watching Judas and the Black Messiah, a film that should be a big part of this year's Oscar discussion, but because of bullshit, it won Oscars last year. But it did win, if I remember correctly, for supporting actor, original song.
It had
And
a
didn't
lot
it
of
win
wins.
I think it won 3 awards.
I don't remember, but I know
I can't-
it definitely won a lot of
The
awards.
Fight for You by HER is a pretty badass song. And when we do 2021 versus awards, I have a feeling it will do well for us. But it did win in 2020's race. And Daniel Kaluuya was double bullshit. Not because, let me say, he was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome. It was the best performance he's given. But just like when Brad Pitt won fucking supporting actor for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this was some bullshit putting a lead actor in a supporting role for awards politics. Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, who was also nominated for supporting actor, they were the friggin' leads of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There are no two ways about it. They were the leads. Calling either of them, let alone both of them, supporting actor.
One of them would have definitely needed to be the lead at least.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, it's just like double bullshit.
Yeah.
That not only were they nominated in the wrong year, but they were nominated in the wrong category. And that just completely screwed over 2020's supporting actor field. Just completely.
See,
But I do think that Kaluuya was awesome. If he had been nominated for actor, he should have lost to either Boseman or Anthony Hopkins. But he would have deserved to be... But no, he shouldn't. No. Sorry. Let me rephrase that. He should be nominated for actor this year. Oh well.
oddly enough, I do know of one voting member of the Academy that has watched our programming.
Really? Cool.
He's not high up on the totem pole, but you don't have to be that high up to be a voting member.
No.
You have to be. Sorry if you are listening. But you see, he listened to you. He just didn't know the context. You see, he heard, no, Judas and the Black Messiah shouldn't be here. So like, that's right. And the next awards in 2021, they will not be here, just as he said. Like, no, they didn't hear the shouldn't be here for the 2020 awards. They just.
Well, all right then.
No, actually, the Mauritanian, no, they listened totally. They kept them out of the awards for you entirely this year and last year.
No, I want Tahar Rahim to be nominated this year.
He was such a good actor.
I know. All right, your go.
Yes. So on the second, I did some animated stuff. I did 3 animated features.
Wow.
Well, 2 features and 1 short.
Okay.
Because I was trying to get up for my 2021.
Yeah.
And this one didn't get nominated for this animated short.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think Disney got any nominations for animated
No,
shorts.
they didn't, and we'll get to that in a minute, but go ahead.
So, the animated short I watched was Far From the Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an excellent film.
It is.
I think you covered it in the last months about this, raccoon, and didn't quite understand why the mother did what she did because it got in trouble. But I feel like it was a good explanation of showing how generations can take something, understand it, and then translate it to make it even better for the next generation. And it's kind of a shame that one didn't get nominated.
Yeah.
But it was a really good film. Might get nominated for the Versus Awards this year. Who knows?
Maybe.
But I did watch 2 other 2021 films. Encanto,
Nice.
which is a superb Disney animated feature. Matter of fact, I've watched both of those features, but I've only watched one of them in January, and that's Encanto. And I do think that out of the ones I've watched, it is my favorite of the Disney animated features. I liked it better than Raya.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about it that is just, in general, great. I like that they really understood representation from where they were coming from, which is Colombia, because you had not just, like, the stereotypical view of, like, the kind of just tannish skinned people in there, but you also had, Colombians, of all the colors.
Mm-hmm.
The lighter skin, the really dark skin, all of that was represented, and that was really good. And it's this film about this special group of people who get this power from this candle, and they use the power to kind of help grow their village of safety. And you learn more about why the power came in, and you learn not to talk about Bruno, which
Well, the Academy didn't.
which is funny because that song apparently got such love. Apparently,
It's
been,
the song of the year.
which I don't understand really because
It's the biggest song Disney's had since Let It Go.
it's to me it's somewhat catchy,
Hmm?
but one, it's not my favorite song by far in the entirety of the film.
Oh, I
it was,
loved it.
To me, it was like it was a proper Disney musical animated feature.
Hmm.
I had many others that I liked more than it. I actually had forgotten about the song. That was just it slipped my mind after I'd watched it, and I was like, I don't remember what did it sound like. And even now, I can't even come up with how it sounds in my mind. It's so which kind of fails the definition of an earworm. Whereas Let It Go, I can tell you Let It Go. And I feel like Let It Go was more powerful in its meaning because of that. But so I didn't get it. I still don't get it. But it's an okay song. I'm calling the pitchforks on me right now for that. But still, I mean, out of it, I liked Encanto. It was a really good story. Do you want me to go ahead and finish my one?
You might as well.
I watched the film Ron's Gone Wrong.
Okay.
Also, actually, a pretty good film about this kind of not so distant future where they develop. It's almost kind of a Mitchell's versus the Machines type scenario in a way, but where they develop these smart robots. You got this kind of Apple Corporation. You got this innovative dude. You got this money grubbing dude, and they're kind of paired together and you got this poor kid, and he can't afford the new thing that everybody else has, which is like a sentient iPhone robot. And then a defective one gets sold to the family under the table off the bus, and his name ends up being Ron. And it develops into quite the question of friendship and all of this stuff, typical stuff.
Oh, yeah.
A pretty good film. Not the best animated film of the year, but a solid film, nevertheless.
Okay. All right. Now, quick follow-up on, because now that the Oscar nominations are out, okay, but you were saying, it's kind of weird that Disney didn't have any shorts nominated. Part of the reason being that Disney did some stupid-ass bullshit with the politics and shot themselves in the foot doing it because they submitted Us Again, but not Far From the Tree because they wanted Us Again to be their winner. And it didn't even, which I'm shocked it didn't get nominated because that's a great short too.
Short, yeah.
And they did the same thing with songs. They nominated Dos Oreguitas, but they did not submit We Don't Talk About Bruno. And Dos Oreguitas got nominated, but seriously, if you think about it, A Beautiful Little Spanish Ballad or the year's biggest earworm, which one's more likely to win the Oscar?
Yeah.
They may or may not get that win.
And now for something completely different.
And now for something somewhat different, because I'm still going to be speaking about animation that produced some pretty damn good earworms. But this is going back in time to 1997, 98, I believe, to a Don Bluth production called Anastasia, which I don't know why I'm almost hell-bent on watching that again. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I haven't seen this in a while. And Anastasia is a great film. And it was fun revisiting it again. And, of course, Once Upon a December is one of the great songs. Journey to the Past is a good one. There's some good stuff. And In the Dark of the Night is a nice villain song. You got some good stuff there. It's a fun movie. Don Bluth films are pretty much all worth a look. And it was a nice little slight return before we covered Secret of Nim later in the month. So had a couple of Bluth films actually for the month. So I think that worked out well.
Anastasia really is, I mean, to me, if you had put it on there, well, it is a Disney film now, but
Yeah.
But if you had said this was a Disney film to me back in the day, I'd have believed you because it had all the earmarks.
Pretty much.
It felt like a full-on Disney film, and it was better, I think, than a lot of Disney films.
Especially at that time period.
Yeah, that was one of their dark ages.
Well, it was a couple years after Hunchback, so it's not like, deep in the dark ages, but I think they didn't really have anything that well, was that the year? That was the year Tarzan came out, wasn't it? Or Hercules, one of those two. I don't know. It was still not their best. Some would disagree with that, but whatever.
I'm going to do one quick one.
Okay.
And then I'll come back to that day after you present one because I need to look up one because I don't remember what it was about. But it snowed that day.
Yeah.
So we're off. So whenever we have the first snow day of the year, we watch Snow Day.
It
It's a Nickelodeon film about Snow Day.
seems logical.
And it's done in the style that's very similar to the late 90s Pete and Pete style. It's a bunch of kids at the cul-de-sacs and all that stuff. And, of course, it's done from kind of that kid's point of view. How awesome it is to have a snow day, and you had the younger sibling doing the small kid stuff, and you got the teen sibling doing the teen stuff with the romance and so on. So, to me, it was a great film. I enjoyed it. I always enjoy watching it on a snow day. We always talk about maybe watching Storm of the Century on a snow day. It's like that's for like a blizzard, like where we know we're not going to work for multiple days.
Right.
If we ever get one of those nightmare blizzards, that's when we watch Storm of the Century because that's such a long haul.
Right.
We're doing that all day.
Yeah.
Hot chocolate and all that stuff.
Sounds like a fun plan.
All right. Well, I am going to let you go while I'm looking up this animated
Okay, so
short.
I actually did an interesting little run here. It looks like 5 films in a row that I watched over the span of about 2 days. I think it was 2 days. That all ended up being Oscar nominees. I was trying to beef up my numbers, and I called it right on these. The first one is an animated feature that I could be wrong, but I want to say it's an Aardman Studios production. But it is nominated for animated feature, and it's called Robin Robin. It's a cute little movie about a robin who falls out of his nest when he's like a hatchling and is raised by a family of mice. And he's raised to be a mouse and to be sneaky and all this stuff, but fails miserably because, Robin. And during the course of the story, they end up meeting a mockingbird, and they have adventures, and it's a fun little movie. It's good-hearted fun. Clean, I don't think I would rate it above Us Again or Far From the Tree, but I can definitely see why it got its nod. And, well, currently it's the only nominee I've seen, so, yeah. Of those, anyway, of the animated shorts, I mean.
Well, I saw 3 Disney animated shorts. One is debatable and is not going to be, well, it's not nominated anyway because none of them got nominated.
Yeah.
But one was 22 versus Earth, which had come right after, so it was a 2021 film, but at the very first part of the year. And it was a short film for in the world of Soul. And it was kind of a prequel film with 22 basically wreaking havoc. And feeling alone because everybody that she'd engaged in her plan all got assigned to Earth and left. Fun, but nothing special.
Right.
Now the 2 others, 20-something and Nono, both really good short films. And both really should have been submitted. Disney had a lot of good short films this year. I don't know if are they capped at how many they could submit?
I don't know if there's a cap for studios. Maybe, but I think so.
Because they could have shotgunned that bad boy. They had a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
And 20-something is about this this girl that goes to the club with this other one that looks suspicious. She kind of just looks like this. Basically, there you go, the girl there, and you kind of see that it's made up of 3 different girls, one teenager, one baby, and one elementary school kid, and they're kind of different, trying to figure out who's driving the coat. But you find out that it's really all 3 of them kind of fighting in the head of this 21-year-old who is going out to party with her friend for the first time at the club and kind of feeling that. And it was really well done. I thought it was really a great film. One that, not only does it have 2 people of color as the main characters, but also just as a great film in general.
Okay.
And then Nono, which is this film about this older woman who loves watching wrestling, and she's watching it with her. She's just watching it on the TV, and then her daughter ends up just dropping off her granddaughter with her. And they kind of learn a little bit about each other as they go. And there you go. That's that way it looks. And again, another cute film, another one that I felt like was overlooked a bit. All of them. Us Again, those 2, and the one I talked about earlier, Far From the Tree, all of them were spectacular films. If they were all submitted, I'm sure one of them would have gotten in.
Okay.
All right. Well, that was all mine for the third.
All right. Well, I was looking off of a list of short films that were nominated. Well, that was also How Saw Robin Robin. I was looking at the ones that were in the short list, like that were in contention. And Netflix had a few of them, and I think they had 3 of the documentaries that were in contention. So I put on a documentary called Audible, which is about football players at the Maryland School for the Deaf. And so basically it's about, talking about, in many ways, what it's like to be a football player who's, deaf at a special needs school, but also just generally about life in such a situation, what it's like for the kids, what it's like for the adults who work with them and whatnot. And I wasn't blown away by it, but I thought it was really good. Like, it was interesting. It was definitely interesting. It was something different. It was a good... and then, of course, I ended up getting nominated. So I had at that point already... So when the nominations were announced, I had already seen 2 of the short films. And that is unusual for me. So that was fun. And should I go ahead and do the other one from that day, or should I?
Go for it.
Okay. So the other one from that day, again, I think those were the same day, but I know that I followed up Audible with a feature film. I did watch one of the Netflix films that ended up being a multiple nominee and a Best Picture nominee, and that was the Adam McKay film Don't Look Up.
Good film.
Which is a very good film. It's going to be a divisive film because reasons. One of them being that Adam McKay wears his politics on his sleeve and doesn't give a rat's ass if you are offended by that or not. But it is a very, very, very brutally honest look at humanity's short-sightedness and our unwillingness to look at the obvious, because a huge meteor, asteroid, whatever, is hurtling toward the Earth. a scientific team played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence have determined with absolute precision and certainty when the strike will happen. And you have all these other people, including a ratings-crazed president played by Meryl Streep, her dingbat son, who's also her chief of staff, who's played by Jonah Hill, a Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg type, Jeff Bezos type, played by Mark Rylance. You got Kate Blanchett and Tyler Perry as news reporting team. It's a phenomenal cast, and you got Ariana Grande and Kid Cudi playing the two phenoms of pop. They're basically like Beyonce and Jay-Z in this world, you know. And they even do a really cool song called "Just Look Up" that could have been a nominee for original song. It's an allegory for the climate change crisis that we're all facing, which is why it's going to turn off a lot of people. But I thought it was a great film. I enjoyed it, and I was glad I got to see it. And I keep planning to show the whole family. I'm going to be like, you guys need to watch this movie, you know.
It was a fun film. I watched it on the 9th myself, so with Kim. And we both really liked it. And but yeah, it definitely hits you over the head with what it wants to do. It's hard to watch it and not realize, oh, I don't know what they wanted me to know.
Well, you could also make the argument that there's a little bit of a COVID-19 response as part of the messaging too. But yeah, really what it comes down to is just that it's not literally about an asteroid.
Yeah, it's got other reasoning.
Yes.
But it's a good film, and I don't really have much else to say on it. It was a good film. I'm glad it got nominated. I watched it for the exact same reason as I knew it was going to get nominated. Or I was very, very certain it was on that short list. Speaking of on the short list, on the 5th, I watched a animated short film that supposedly was on one of the short lists called Bad Seeds. Which was interesting. I mean, it is a very weird style. It's just got that kind of old-timey looking pen and ink style, and it's about these plants that grow, and as they eat flies and so on, they evolve, and then they kind of evolve into two different animals, like a frog and a bird, and they kind of war with each other over the food. And the ending is actually... It's got a good ending. It's not a hard one to find. I think you can find. I found it on, I want to say YouTube.
Really?
It's worth watching. Probably it's a very simplistic film, a simplistic message, and in some cases you don't have to be complex to get a point across. I actually think I have more than enough right now to submit for the Versus Awards animated short category this year, I think.
Well, I do.
I don't know about the others, but I know at least in that category.
I still have yet to see any live action shorts, and I only have 2 documentaries listed, but I have the number for animated. One of them sucks, but still. Okay. Yep. So, was that all your thought on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and pair a couple that are pretty big, but I think we're running close enough. I actually went to the theater for a double header. What's up?
No, I was trying to read whatever.
Oh, okay. I actually went for the theater for a double header, and there were 2 basic points to this. One was I was trying to knock out potential Oscar nominees and movies that I knew we'd need for the Versus Awards. And this happened to be 2 movies that purported to star or co-star or feature Bradley Cooper. So I went for a Bradley Cooper twofer. I went to see the Guillermo del Toro film noir Nightmare Alley and the Paul Thomas Anderson 1970s throwback licorice pizza, which I believe are both up for Best Picture, are they not?
Yeah.
So I will go ahead and say, first of all, I will do the second one first. Licorice Pizza is a very rough shaggy, fun little film. It's not quite what I would normally expect from Paul Thomas Anderson. It has a lot of those elements, like the big names showing up for very small roles is something that happens a lot. In addition to Bradley Cooper, you've actually got an interesting sequence starring Sean Penn and Tom Waits. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But
got your cameos down.
you do have your cameos. And actually, Harriet Sansom Harris also was a notable cameo in the film. And there were some others too, but basically you have Alana Haim, who is one of the three sisters in a band that I think is called Haim. And her two bandmates and sisters actually play her sisters in the film. And then you have, I think it's Cooper Hoffman, who is the late Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. Both of them in their feature film debuts as the stars of the film. Mm-hmm. And they play a couple of kids. He's a kid. She's a young 20-something. They're separated by about 9 or 10 years. And they end up striking up an interesting friendship. And that's really about it. It's kind of just a series of vignettes tripping through one summer. Cooper shows up at one point as a guy who repeatedly mentions, you get the impression that he loves name dropping, repeatedly mentions that he is dating one Barbra Streisand. And he is late for a date with her, in fact, but he keeps showing up. But he's only in a few minutes of the film. And everyone keeps raving about this performance. And I'm like, he's only in a few minutes of the film. It really is a cameo. But I liked Licorice Pizza well enough. It really deserves its original screenplay nod. And yes, I do have it currently listed as a cameo contender for the Versus Awards. Not for Bradley Cooper. Well, you know, I'll save that for later. But it's a fun one. Not one of my top picks of the year. On the other hand, Nightmare Alley was friggin' awesome. It is a rendition of a book that was originally made into a Tyrone Power film back in the 40s, I think. And Del Toro took it, and he calls it his first film without supernatural elements. But there definitely is a sense of, wonder, for lack of a better term. It takes place in a carnival, and Bradley Cooper plays a drifter who finds his place in the carnival. He comes under the tutelage of a wonderful David Strathairn. People really should have been talking more about his performance in the film. Also, the film, what am I trying to say? Carnival is essentially run by a character played by Willem Dafoe. He keeps everyone in line. You've got Toni Collette there. You got a few other fun folks. And Cooper, and Ron Perlman. And actually, a really fun thing about this was, without planning to, I saw Don't Look Up Now, went to see Nightmare Alley, which both had Cate Blanchett and Ron Perlman in them. So Cooper ends up with this woman, and he takes her on the road with his new improved version of the con that he learned from Strathairn. And this puts him in the crosshairs of a psychiatrist played by Cate Blanchett and a wealthy businessman played by Richard Jenkins. And it spirals out of control and goes into dark places, and I'll leave it at that. It's kind of two movies in one, really. There's the Carney section and then the post section. Really good. I loved it, and it should have been up for more awards than it is. But
yeah, we watched that just the other night, and it was really good. I mean, the ending was very predictable.
I did like it, though.
Even if you didn't see... Now, the original film, it's interesting because he kind of gets saved from his fate in the at the end of the film because the studio didn't think that
I was
the
trying to
ending would
avoid
be appropriate.
spoilers.
I didn't say why he was, but you know.
Right.
But trust me, as you go through, you'll know exactly. If you're paying attention, you'll know exactly what's going to happen.
And it may be predictable, but damn it, he deserved it.
And the only thing I didn't get, and even to this day, we spent half the night trying to figure it out, which was what the psychiatrist's motivation was. I mean, money, one could say, but without getting. But the problem is, without getting into actual spoiler
Right.
territory, it's one that's hard to discuss. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you guys watch that one out there, and you know, you're able to figure out entirely, because even the book,
Mm-hmm.
her motivations are kind of unclear. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of interesting. But if y'all have watched it and you guys, no, this is exactly what the motivation was, and it was really clear, and this is it. Just make sure to put spoiler and put some space down so that people aren't reading that.
Nice.
And otherwise, yeah, let me know because I am curious what that motivation was because we weren't clear. Other than money, it was hard to figure out what motivation.
I also got an idea that she got some enjoyment out of putting people in their place and some other things too. But you're right, it's not crystal clear, but I also felt like some ambiguity might not be a bad thing, you know?
Maybe, but I usually don't like film noir, so I guess it's there.
Ah, okay.
And I'll give it this: the film did not bore me like most film noirs do. So,
And like most Guillermo del Toro films, it's gorgeous.
oh yeah,
It should have swept the technical categories.
it was a thing of
Yeah.
I don't know about beauty, but definitely.
Well, you know, gorgeous in the sense that it's like this is a movie. You know what I mean? Like,
So
like they did their stuff.
on the 8th, I watched a film called Llamageddon, which I believe is a 2021 film, so it could be up for the low budget feature.
Okay, I'll have to look for that, I guess.
I don't know whether it's 2021 or not without looking at my list, but it is a film about llamas from space that are coming to Earth to conquer it. And it has a lot of, what was it, Black Sheep vibes
Right.
to it. And there are some scenes that are kind of disturbing in that sense. But it's pretty absurd. But hey, I mean, any movie where you got a llama shooting lasers out of their eyes to kill all of humanity, that's kind of runs
Nice.
it. Then I also watched Bad Ben that day.
Wow.
I don't know how much you've got left. I got a lot left.
Well, I'll go ahead and do this one, and then we can see what we got. So this year so far, and I hate to say this, I really do. Last night we learned of yet another of the late Ivan Reitman has left us, unfortunately. This has been a pretty rough year already for passings. And of course, one of the big early ones was the late Sidney Poitier. And it was like the day after I think we got the announcement about Peter Bogdanovich. And I determined to watch in, memorance of each of them, a couple films I had sitting around waiting to be watched. And one of those for Poitier was a film called A Patch of Blue, which is a film that came out in 1965, where he plays a gentleman, Gordon Ralph, who befriends a young girl he meets in the park. Her name is Selena Darcy, and she is played by Elizabeth Hartman in her first ever film performance. Hartman, in a weird bit of morbid synchronicity, her final performance before her suicide is the lead role in The Secret of Nim, which I think we covered about a week later. And I did not realize this at the time, so that was a weird little bit of synchronicity there. But of course, the film also features an Oscar winning performance from Shelley Winters. You got Wallace Ford, some other folks. But essentially, you have this young woman who is blind, who is essentially a prisoner of the worst mother ever. And Shelley Winters plays hell on wheels in that movie. And Ralph, Poitier's character, takes it upon himself to do what he can to help her out. Like they develop a very close friendship that's kind of, for lack of a better term, a platonic. Like it's kind of a romance, but a very platonic one, in a sense. And but even maybe because the early '60s, he's black, she's white, they could have only done so much without infuriating half the audience. But and actually, of course, Shelley Winters' character is horribly racist, and so they do touch on it in the film, no doubt about it. But it was a good movie. It was my second time seeing it, and I've been waiting for a while to get it done. And when he died, I was like, okay, I gotta watch this movie now. So, yeah.
I still need to watch more of his films.
Yeah, I need to see more of them too. I've seen several, but I don't think I've actually seen To Sir with Love.
I have not.
I don't think I have.
I haven't even seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
I have seen that.
Or Guess Who.
I have not seen that.
But Llamageddon was on the 7th. On the 8th, I watched Dante's Shadow of Sin, which is the newest Dakota Ray film. I'm not going to go in depth. I'll summarize the plot. And it's about this guy Dante, who is kind of an evil dude. And then he's got his friend who invites him over because, hey, my father's dead. I've inherited the place, so let's celebrate with drugs and debauchery. And he's like, heck yeah, drugs and debauchery, let's go with that. And they go to this house, but little does Dante know that his friend secretly wants to kill him during this time. It's very good. I think Dakota Ray's filmmaking keeps improving film by film. It was much more coherent than the last film. And I actually spoke with the director myself about it, and he's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of your points definitely drove home. I was kind of worried when I did my review of it that he might take offense to it. But no, he looked at it, took the good and the bad when I did my analysis. It was my very first of this format, and I'm going to be doing another one on the Craig Lawn incident. That's my next target. So you should check that out because I call it film psychoanalysis, and where I start with a basic review, spoiler free of the film, and then I do a full on analysis as I hit the plot points throughout. And yes, there is video throughout this. Video clips abound. So it's not just looking at my pretty face as I'm talking. And it went over well from what those people who watched it really liked it. I'll be curious what you think of the format if you ever do get to check it out. Maybe before you even think about watching the Dakota Ray film for this year, it might be a good thing to see that and give you a warning. Because it did have some disturbing stuff in it.
I can imagine.
But on another note, I finished a series that had taken up the bulk of December and November, which was Have Gun Will Travel. I finished the entire series, all 5 seasons, all done. And I then gave it to Dave because it was a pretty damaged box set. And also on top of that, I just told myself, am I going to ever want to watch this again? No, I think I've done my time with Paladin.
You've done your time.
I mean, it's about this guy, Paladin. He is a gun for hire. But he tries to live by his namesake, Paladin, as a figure of justice and good. So he only takes on certain jobs. And it's pointed out to him on the regular, well, you're a hired gun. You need to do this or that. He's like, no. Yeah, I'm a hired gun, but I have standards. And there's a lot of things on it that do feel good. I feel like some of the episodes are pretty thoughtfully written. It's not your standard Gunsmoke episode or Bonanza, which are my two least favorite Westerns, where I had a hard time sitting through an episode of either without getting bored. So I think it's just the amount. I think on their own, a couple episodes at a time, it's a pretty good series overall. Very, very watchable. Many of the episodes are pretty memorable. They're pretty good stories, but I really don't feel like I'm ever going to visit this cowboy again. So long, Paladin. May our paths never cross, but I will remember our time together fondly.
And at least you got that watched. It's more than I could say.
I watched the whole thing, and that's a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
It's the 5 seasons, but we're not talking 5 standard seasons, like not 5 seasons of 12 or 24. We're talking seasons that were pretty long.
Yeah.
It was hundreds of episodes. Let's just say that.
All right. So, speaking of things that were tedious and kind of drew your made you wonder a little bit, and also kind of probably about on the same quality level maybe as Llamageddon, although I can almost guarantee not quite as fun, was a movie that should have been better, theoretically. It was a documentary, one of the only ones I've seen so far this year, called Pharma Bro, which is about Martin Shkreli, one of the biggest douchebags ever to walk the face of the U.S., which is saying something, giving some of the douchebags that we have out there right now. Perfect example of someone that money does not buy class or decency. This is a guy who bought a popular AIDS drug and jacked the price 550% or 5,500%. And he bought the only copy of a Wu-Tang album that they were going for this big, we're going to be like old school art where we only have one copy of the album and you cannot merchandise it. It has to be, they were going for this big highfalutin idea, which is kind of, whatever, Wu-Tang Clan. And this asshole bought it just so no one else could listen to it.
No, in all fairness, he is a huge Wu-Tang Clan fan.
So. Yeah, but so this guy could have been the basis of a pretty good documentary. But the guy that made this movie is, for lack of a better word, a stalker who really doesn't know how to make a movie. And essentially he moves into the same apartment and keeps talking about stuff about, he keeps talking about his own experience trying to get close to the guy. Most of the interviewees could be considered stalkers and hangers-on of their own right. One of them is just plain weird. Well, several of them are weird, but it's a fascinating movie in some ways, but it's also kind of a painful movie in some ways. And I don't know what to think of it, honestly, but it's there. It's filling space on my documentary slot for now.
Yeah, you got something on there. I've seen some documentaries already this year, which are pretty good. Right. But we're not going to cover. I don't think we're going to cover many of those here. There's a mockumentary, which I'll be covering right now.
Okay.
Which is on the 9th. I watched Death to 2021.
Nice.
The sequel to the film Death to 2020. Which is a mockumentary. Well, one could call it a documentary in many ways because it does theoretically do that, but it's much more comedic than anything else. And you see some of the people return. Of course, Sam Jackson didn't return, but it's all right. I mean, they still had a lot of the fun ones return for it, and if you hadn't seen the first one, essentially it's this mockumentary going through the events of the year and having kind of these fun commentaries in between. And this one went over 2021, same format. I love the kind of the ultra conservative soccer mom and the who made a return this time, and the not so bright common person British woman. And it's just like in the first one, it's like, I stumbled upon this this new reality show. It's called America. And just going through it. And of course, in the 2021, they talked
like
about
an unreality show.
January 6th, and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It shows her like up in arms with her gun up, like, yeah. It's like it was a great film. If you've got Netflix, they're both fun films. Death of 2020 and Death of 2021 were both fun films, well worth the watches.
Cool.
And I'll cover one more for it.
I've basically got 5 left, so use your judgment how many you need to get.
Let's see, how many do I have left? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Okay.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18,
Well, let's just say you
19,
do
20.
3 this time.
21 left.
Okay.
I also watched, because we watched Secret of NEM, I watched Secret of NEM 2, Timmy to the Rescue. Because I've got that double feature, which
Nice.
that's the cover. Now, okay, art style for the first part is very different.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that.
Right.
That does not look anything like the art style of the Don Bluth.
Well, didn't
art
they come
style.
out like 14 years later or something?
It did. And it's, it's a sequel where, there's a prophecy that one of the kids, and of course it's Timmy, I believe, that's, back there, and, the one that had the pneumonia, he's going to be the savior of everything, and then they go to the valley that the rats went to, and they confront Nim, and they have some weird, turnabout. If you really want to watch this film, I suggest go watch the Nostalgia Critic entry on it, because it's a much more entertaining way to see the film than to actually watch the film. I doubt I'll ever watch this again. And if they ever release a better version of Secret of NEM, because the Blu-ray version kind of sucks on the transfer. So if they ever release a truly good transfer, like a 4K transfer of Secret of NEM, I will get that, and I will dump the second movie because it's trash. Though I did kind of appreciate the weird villain turnaround at the end. It was still kind of out of nowhere, and this didn't need to be made. I'll cover one more while I'm...
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I'll let you cover one, because then I can go ahead and I'll just cover these as a grouping.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, we lost Peter Bogdanovich, I think the day before Sidney Poitier passed, and Bogdanovich has done some great stuff over the years. He did Paper Moon, which is a friggin' classic, and he did. I still need to see. Was it the Last Picture Show? I think it is. I still need
It's
to
a good
see.
movie.
Yeah, but he in his later years did a few well-spaced films, and actually the one that introduced me to him, I was actually on listening to NPR, and they did a conversation with him about his new film at the time, which was 2001's The Cat's Meow. And first of all, I like the title.
It was a good
But
film.
then, they did a really good discussion about it, and I was like, okay, I want to see this, and I actually went to see it in theaters. It took me a while to add it to my collection, And then I was just sitting there collecting dust. And again, when he passed, I was like, I've got this movie. I need to watch it. And so essentially, it is based on I think it says on the cover, it's based on a true rumor. But basically, this was during the days of William Randolph Hearst. And Hearst is played in the film by Edward Herrmann. And he hosts a birthday party for a producer by the name of Thomas Ince on a boat off of California. And Carrie Ullis plays Ince. Marion Davies, Hearst's gal, kind of girl toy, side piece, whatever you want to call her, is played by Kirsten Dunst in the film. Eddie Izzard plays one Charles Chaplin, who has the hots for Davies and almost doesn't even care that Hearst is right there. You got gossip columnist Llewellyn Parsons, played by Jennifer Tilly, and a lot of other people in there. You got Joanna Lumley's in there, Claudia Blackley, a whole bunch of folks. And basically, the gist of it is they have their party. Chaplin is flirting like crazy with Davies. Hearst is simmering with rage. Ince is desperately trying to get Hearst to back him as a big-time producer, and he's trying to use the whole, well, I could keep an eye on her when she's out here in Hollywood angle. And he tries to use the whole, well, I know about what's going on with Chaplin. You know, he tries to use that as an angle. And it gets him killed. And I'm not going to go into too much more detail than that. But basically, Ince did die very suddenly under mysterious circumstances about this time. This movie tells one of the versions of how it may have happened. And it's a very entertaining film. It's very interesting. It's well done. It's got a nice old school vibe to it. And it was fun seeing it again. You know, so, yeah.
Well, I finally decided, okay, for 2021, I'm going to have to get some of these Marvel Next Phase films knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep being told, oh, you got to watch this series, you got to watch that series, or else you're going to miss something. And then I'm like, I don't know. And then I was like, but they put so much out, there's too much to watch. Oh, by the way, if you want to watch the Netflix shows, you better watch them by the end of the month. They're being pulled.
Yeah.
And there's no current plans to put them on Disney Plus. So when they get pulled, if you don't have them on physical, which they released partially on physical, they may be lost media. And that's I'm hoping Disney will decide to put them on Disney Plus later. But if the rights hold it up, it could be that they get stuck in basically lost media.
I have a feeling Disney will probably try to release most of them, but I think Disney will be very unenthused about Punisher, and I don't know if they'll think the demand is there for Iron Fist.
And that's the worry, is that whether it's... Now, I know some of them, like I don't know what Daredevil got all of it released. I know that at least the first 2 seasons were released. And that's one of those things where... This is why, sadly, some of these bootleg companies... are necessary, because otherwise something like, say, the Punisher, you may never, it may be, if Disney had their way, it might be that you'll never ever see it again. That oh, well, it's not on streaming, well, therefore it must not be worth watching. So, you know, that's just that's that thing, is like it's sadly brings my point.
Now we know they're going to be continuing some of the characters at least, but
I think Daredevil will get a full release. I can't say for the others, but again, they have to negotiate some with Netflix on it, because Netflix still has some rights in the game.
Right.
And Disney may be like, nah, we're not going to spend any money. We have the power to say cease and desist. Bye. Yeah. And that's done. So again, it is very possible a lot of these shows could be lost media. So watch them while you can. But these shows are not lost media yet, because Disney is not doing physicals for these. So I just thought I'd cover them all because,
Mhm.
you know, that way I'll just cover them in one entry.
Right.
On the 13th, I watched WandaVision,
Cool.
which theoretically is the order that you were supposed to watch it anyway, because WandaVision was the first.
Hmm.
And it's, it's pretty much everything most people said it was. My mother loved that show. I was like, it was all right. It was fairly decent. They're all very well written, all very well acted. They bring the quality to the series. And it was all right. It was very weird. And yeah, the ending kind of tied things together, but I kind of am on the opposite end. I actually preferred the opening salvos to the ending salvos. And you saw WandaVision, didn't you?
Nope.
Oh,
Still need to see it.
because it starts off as one thing, and I'm not going to go in because, again, try not to spoil her.
Right.
But it starts off as one thing, and it kind of gives you hints as to what it is,
Mhm.
and then more hints. Okay, blatant hit you inside the head because
Mhm.
you should know better at this point. The ending kind of left me going, is it this or that? But still, it was an okay series.
Okay.
Then I watched Loki on the 15th.
Cool.
These are actually small enough bites that you can get most of them in a couple of days.
Hmm.
Loki was spectacular. I loved Loki. It's my favorite of the Marvel series. It's fun. It has kind of almost a Rick and Morty vibe to it, where you've got all the multiverse, and Loki is, it continues off of the events that happened in Endgame.
Hmm.
So if you haven't watched Endgame, you watch that first so you can get an idea. And then it has a couple other things that are cited elsewhere, but it is worth checking out if you want to know what happened to Loki at the end of Endgame.
I need to properly watch that. I saw much of it, but yeah.
But it is fun. Loki Gator is indeed my favorite Loki. It's just generally fun.
Okay.
Falcon and Winter Soldier started off really slow for me. And I was like, gosh, I have to watch this. But as it went through, it picked up steam, and it was really good at the end.
Cool.
I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of solid messages. For those of you who do not like to see a person of color as Captain America, stay clear from this show because it is there. And it is about people of color. A lot of that racism, things like that, they venture into this. So if you don't like that sort of thing, if you are in that camp of it doesn't exist, we need to erase it, don't watch this. Stay away from it. For the rest of you, it's a good series, pretty solid series. Check it out.
Cool.
And then and the last two I ended up watching on the 21st. What If, which is an animated series. And it can tie in as well. I've heard that there might even be tie-ins later on, so it's a good thing to check that out. Because multiverse, and I've heard that there might even be a Doctor Strange tie-in to What If.
Actually, the one where they said, "What if his heart had lost his heart instead of his hands?" I've heard that the Doctor Strange in the trailer is very probably the one from that short,
and
that is a good episode.
And the series ties all of the stories together, so all of them are worth watching because it has an actual story arc and it does wrap in. It's not quite like the comics, though. I do want them to do the What If, which is what if the Watcher, who's watching the Watcher, which has which is a great comic. It has like a picture of the Watcher in a Marilyn Monroe dress, and it has the story of how Galactus fought Thanos and then got turned into Elvis.
The one What If comic I read that I had in my collection was the What If Blink of Generation X had not died, and that she basically becomes a Watcher in that one, which was an interesting concept. And interesting note as well, What If T'Challa became Star-Lord is the final credit for Chadwick Boseman. So,
and it was a good.
It was a good episode.
Really good episode.
Yeah.
And the final one I watched was Hawkeye.
Good show.
Which I could have watched before I watched Black Widow, but more into that later.
Yeah.
that one to me was very much. I felt it was okay, but I couldn't get into it.
Oh, I loved it.
I was like, meh.
I absolutely love Yelena. I loved seeing Kingpin come back, and I love I love her so much I can't think of her name right now.
There you go.
Haley Steinfeld.
Like I said, I thought it was an okay series, but it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
It was probably, out of all of them, it was my least favorite of the group.
Okay.
And I disagree, though. I don't think it's one that you have to watch at Christmas. I think it's just one that Christmas happened to be the background of
Exactly, yeah.
It wasn't a Christmas series, as in,
It's
we were doing this for the spirit of Christmas.
It's Christmas like Die Hard is a
Yeah.
Christmas movie, you know?
It's Christmas is in the background.
Right.
It's happening during Christmas.
Right.
All right.
All right. So my next one, I randomly inserted where I think it goes because somehow I forgot to put it on my list. I don't know how. But then again, so did Oscar. So it's going around. I went the last time so far that I've been to the theater this year. I probably won't get to go again for at least another month, which kind of bugs me. I never made it to some stuff I wanted to see, but I had to go to see Mamoru Hosoda's new film, Belle, which is a wonderful film. It is gorgeous. It has a wonderful soundtrack. It's basically about a young lady who, her mother died when she was quite young and actually died saving her life. There was a flood and her mother swam out to save her and got swept away in the process. And it left her scarred. She used to, their thing was singing, was music. And she couldn't sing after that. And then, fast forward to her teen years, and there's a new app on that allows people to dive into a virtual world. There's sort of echoes of Oz from Summer Wars. It is the same director after all. But this world is called You, and it's not quite the same. And basically, she dives into You and creates this new character who she names Belle. And she kind of models it after a popular girl in the school that she kind of, and she finds that she can sing as an avatar and becomes hugely popular out of nowhere. She becomes like the toast of the, And then there's a weird sort of Beauty and the Beast subplot that honestly is the weakest part of the film. And so it's kind of a modern riff on Beauty and the Beast, but that's really only part of the story. And they could have, it's actually not Hosoda's best film. And I think without the whole Beauty and the Beast tie-in, it would have actually been a little better. But it's still a really, really, really good film. Like I said, gorgeous film. Really don't know how, although granted I've seen 3 of the films that are nominated and all 3 of them are flipping awesome.
Yeah.
So, but still, Hosoda remains the only non-Ghibli director to actually get an animated feature nod for an anime. I had hoped he would pull it off again. If nothing else, the film should be up in some other categories like original song. Yeah.
I never saw it. It sounds like Ride Your Wave, plot-wise, and with that idea of getting over loss and having to regain a lot of that hesitance.
It's not near as heavy as Ride Your Wave in that respect.
But I've heard mixed things, and I may not be able to see it by Versus Award time. Just depends on when it becomes available on free streaming or physical.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the Hosoda's other works, so I'm sure that I'll like that one. I've heard what I've heard from a lot of anime community people is that it's very pretty, and it's pretty good, but it's not as good as a lot of his previous works.
It's definitely nowhere near as good as Mirai or Summer Wars, but it's probably on par or slightly better than The Boy and the Beast, I would say.
Is it as annoying as Mirai is at the beginning?
No.
I was reminded about how annoying that film was.
That kid is annoying.
At the beginning.
The kid is annoying, yes, but he's also one of the youngest protagonists. Then,
Oh yeah, well,
you
I
know.
mean, it's understandable why he's annoying. It just,
yeah.
he's annoying,
Yeah.
and you'll hear more about that this week.
Yes.
Oddly enough.
We'll be covering Mirai on Movies Galore.
So there you go. Hey, and you can spend the whole time talking about Belle and then not a single moment talking about the other. if
You know.
want to. But and the rest of us go, okay, we didn't see that. So I beats the game.
Oh.
Yeah, over that time, and I'd spent some time on it. I got distracted from what I was doing and got into Spider-Man, which I'd been meaning to play for a while. I played the PS5 update where they reconstructed his face to make him look like Tom Holland, which is, I didn't do it because of that. I did it because I wanted the increased functionality, quicker loading times, and yes, it loads like a dream. It plays like a dream. And you play as Spider-Man, and you have to fight these villains in this overall encompassing arc. It is pretty epic. I can't go into details other than, yes, the Sinister Six is involved, a version of it. And yes, there is a Doc Ock storyline, but that's obvious to anybody who understands anything about Spider-Man.
Right.
When he's working with Dr. Octavius at the very beginning of the film, you know that he's involved in some way or another. But you even start out learning how to play the game by taking down the Kingpin. That's pretty epic. The boss fights are amazing. When you're fighting things like when you're doing a fight between the Vulture and Electro, and they're tag teaming you. And you're going through the air trying to dodge the lightning bolts while at the same time dealing with the Vulture coming at you. It's pretty amazing. And the last fight scene at the end, which I won't spoil but the last fight scene at the end, it comes across as better than some of the stuff I've seen in the movies. And well worth seeing. You feel like you're Spider-Man. I kind of burned out on it because I did all the side quests and stuff like that. So I played the game to death and then found out that the DLC is more of the same. There's a Black Cat DLC, which I beat it, but I didn't do any of the side quests, and there's more like that. And then there's an entire kind of smaller game called Miles Morales, which is there. But I did beat the game.
Cool.
And then I started my Marvel viewing with Black Widow on the 22nd.
Cool.
My least favorite of the stuff I've watched from this phase so far. So I guess I could say it was less. I liked it less than Hawkeye. Yes, it had Scarlett Johansson in it, but that wasn't enough to save it.
No, Yelena Belova saved it.
Shoot, the guy who played
David Harbour was great too.
He's what saved as far as I'm
great.
concerned. But to me, it was an okay film. Was more action than thought put into it. I really feel like it was a vehicle to say, hey, let's put Scarlett Johansson's face front and center and use that name to put people into the seats. It does take place before Hawkeye, but I didn't feel like watching Hawkeye beforehand hurt my experience. I kind of looked, okay, so this is kind of the prequel.
No. Although I will say I did have the experience of when Yelena showed up in Hawkeye going, it's her!
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had that otherwise.
But, to me, it was an okay film. Beautiful action scenes, very well choreographed, had some good laughs here and there, but not my favorite Marvel film by any means.
I would say as an action film, it's pretty damn good.
But I would say out of the Marvel movies, I would put it around, I'd say maybe equal to or slightly above Dark World.
Oh, definitely better than Dark World.
Because I like Dark World better than most people did. But I don't know. This one, again, if I was a huge Scarlett Johansson fan or of the other actresses and actors there, it might have carried it more for me, but I wasn't. Matter of fact, her character annoyed me a lot. The Black Widow character annoyed me on multiple levels. How they did it. So she does a good job with the action, but to me, it just didn't fit the character to me. And and the character's never been my favorite character in the first place. So add those two together, I wasn't going to be like, "Ooh, this is my favorite film." I feel like you really have to love the actresses involved to put that as one of your favorite films of the year.
Or be an action junkie, because again, it's a damn good action film.
They were better action films.
But I will admit, the one next to it I found much more entertaining on several levels.
I'll get to that next.
Okay.
So
speaking of action-heavy, comic-based films, a film they got, I mean, Black Widow not getting an Oscar nod, I feel like maybe it should have had something. But, like maybe Florence Pugh for supporting actress, for example. But one they got reamed. Absolutely reamed. Absolutely dicked over by Oscar. And I am not happy about this because it's one of the best films of the year. I did have an opportunity to rewatch, and if you can believe it, get the whole family to watch The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn cracked masterpiece from the end of the summer, which is
such a fun film.
Brutal, bloody, violent, grotesque, batshit insane movie that is exactly what the first movie was supposed to be. And this time they nailed they stuck the landing. They made it work. And I absolutely love the movie. It will be up for a bunch of Versus Awards. I think that's a good contention. But what kind of screwed up, effed up world are we living in where the piece of crap Suicide Squad is an Oscar winner and the glorious pseudo masterpiece that is The Suicide Squad gets no Oscar nods at all?
Yeah.
And if I'm remembering correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Marvel still hasn't won an Oscar, right?
It's been up for them, but I don't know.
They've been up for several, but I don't think they've won. So Suicide Squad won an Oscar.
It did have at least what it won for.
Right.
It could have deserved.
It could have deserved makeup. It should have been up for original song, but still, there's so many. And this year, Spider-Man's only up for one friggin' award, and Spider-Man and Shang Chi could change that dynamic. We could have one of them win, and then Marvel will at least be tied. I could be wrong. I feel like one did win, and I'm forgetting something. But still.
Now, I will say that, that one was I don't know. Now, if they had put Suicide Squad up for Best Editing, I'd be like, what are you smoking?
Yes.
But
that was one of the worst edited pieces of shite. Whereas The Suicide Squad was very well edited.
So, I continued my Marvel viewing.
Okay.
I've only seen 3 of this phase's films because Spider-Man is, one, not available on Disney Plus because of their things.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for it unless I'm buying a physical, which may take a while. So I won't probably see that one for a bit. But I'll see it in time for the Versus Awards. I'm sure. I know a physical will be out by then.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that, and I'll probably get the money together because it's well done.
I'm sorry.
I've watched almost everything but Daredevil to prepare for that anyway.
Cool.
But I watched Shang Chi, which was my second favorite, above good ways above Black Widow, but below the other one I watched, in my opinion. So Shang-Chi was an interesting one. You know, it's about the Mandarin, the real Mandarin.
The real Mandarin.
But the actor does make an appearance, which is fun. And I do find it interesting that they decided instead of the rings, you know, I kind of like the Rings of Power thing, but the making them into literal rings on the they can't see me do that.
Right.
Like bracelets was kind of a cool idea. I'm not as big a person to say that Awkwafina was like doing Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress level on that, because Awkwafina was playing herself character-wise. But, you know, I mean, she does a good job playing that. I mean, she did the same thing in Crazy Rich Asians, and that's how she did. Tell you the truth, I was kind of like, so she's kind of a one-note person. But then I saw her voice acting performance in Rhea, and I said, okay, well,
You still need to watch The Farewell.
So, you know, so she did but I'll get more into that next month when I talk about Rhea. But for this one, I wasn't as impressed by her acting chops in that one. It was just, okay, so she's her. But it was still a fairly decent film, good choreography. I liked the plot. I thought it was a fun film, and probably should have gotten much more representation when it came to the Oscars. But it's a comic book movie, so I didn't expect it to.
Well, yeah, one thing that it really should have, and you're talking about the acting, like, I really, truly believe Tony Leung gave a hell of a performance. And this was his first ever American film. And, like, he should have gotten more love than he got.
So I did like that one, and it was enjoyable. As far as the Marvel movies, there were a lot of them that I considered better than that one, but I did still consider it good, like really good on that level. So then I watched The Eternals the next day, and that's my favorite so far of this phase's films, which is totally opposed to most people's opinions. We're like, it's boring, it's stupid, it's this. I'm like, no, it's well thought out.
Yeah.
It's I mean, Chloe Zhao did it, and you can tell she had her hand in it. It's flawed, no doubt.
And it is long, no doubt.
But it needed to be long to express what it wanted to do. And to me, I mean, it's about this group of people who came to Earth and became Earth's protectors, as sort of like a way of speaking. But a lot of it has a lot of similarities to, say, Invincible. And it was all based off the Jack Kirby comic, loosely. And, you know, I mean, depending on what you want out of it, like if you really want diversity in casting, it has one of the first, like, deaf superheroes, intentionally deaf, and they do it in a way that the deaf community can actually embrace it.
If I recall correctly, I think they have a deaf actress playing her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they made it to where she's deaf via design, because it makes her ability to withstand the sonic booms of her running better, which is the idea, because the deaf community, that is the case, is that people who are deaf are actually in a way superior to hearing people, because it's by design that they're deaf. And that's something that is there. That is a way of, so that it's not a disability. And it plays it like that. That no, it's not a disability, and she's in there. And a lot of the cast is diverse, which is good, because they weren't diverse at all in the comic. So it was kind of good. They all fit the roles. And because I never read the comic, they could have changed any part of it. They could have made it not resemble it in the slightest. And I would have been perfectly fine, because I didn't see it.
And of course, some people were mortally offended at the changes that were made.
Well, again, I don't know. I mean, I never read it, so I couldn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, everyone has their own kick.
I mean,
I thought it was good.
I mean, do the characters all have to be white? No. Do all the male characters have to be male? No, not really. Not by my. I mean, unless it was like, there was a guy in there called Mailman and the power of testosterone. Now, if it was like that and they made it a female character for that purpose, it might have been funny for that. But otherwise, it probably wouldn't have been, you know, there.
Right.
But I did like how they did it. It reminded me a lot of Watchmen.
Yeah.
And of course, she said she was very much inspired by Zack Snyder for.
It was a lot better than Watchmen, though.
And of course, Dave would say, well, Zack Snyder is an amazing director and right up there with a lot of the Marvel tiers. So, so I guess that inspiration is there, though many people would disagree.
Mhm.
So, Eternals was good. I liked it the best out of the ones because I thought it was the most thoughtfully written. And I felt like it came together better than all the rest of
Okay.
them.
So the next one I have is one that was thoughtfully written and came together well, but in an awkward and painful and hard to watch kind of way. Like you see those movies every now and then that like there's a lot of truth to that. And maybe more than there should be. And when we were still doing our previews, we came across a film that we saw it and we're like, I love that cover. I must see this. And that was a movie starring Tony Hale called Eat Wheaties. And this film features Tony Hale as a fairly successful advertising executive who has kind of a sad and sheltered life, who is asked to help plan the West Coast reunion for his college. And in doing so, he meets up with a friend from back in the day who's really a bit of a douchebag, who's played by Alan Tudyk. And he also comes across the little bit of info that he didn't realize that an old friend of his, and he spends half the movie trying to prove that she was an old friend of his, is actress and director Elizabeth Banks. And he goes overboard, not only trying to plan this great reunion, but also trying to prove to everyone that he used to know Elizabeth Banks. And meanwhile, he starts writing on her Facebook page, not realizing that the messages are public. And he's frequently writing to her. And her agent slaps him with a restraining order, and things go a little,
As you do.
as you do. I'm not going to go much further than that because if you do decide to watch it, it does have some nice little turns toward the end.
Sounds like fun.
It was fun, but again, in kind of an awkward, painful kind of way. It was one of those films that I kind of hate to say it. I probably saw more than I wanted to of myself in the protagonist. And then also I saw things where he was doing stuff where I was like, no, man, no, don't. But Tony Hale is so good for that kind of role. He did a great job. And yes, the film has a phenomenal poster. And Eat Wheaties makes sense. Once you see the film, it makes sense why it...
So it might be up for that best cover in there.
It could be.
Actually, Mitchell's versus the Machines might be up
It
for
could
best
be.
poster art for
Yep.
me, too, because... And that was a good one. I don't know whether it deserved that animation nod, because, again, Bell probably should have gotten it instead.
Right.
But it was still a good film.
Oh, it was a damn good movie, yeah.
Very, very creative
Yeah.
in the animation. So I'm going to skip over the 25th briefly just to hit the 26th because it's going to be very brief, my discussion here, which was the animated version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which was short, an hour long, looked exactly like the artwork from the book,
Oh, geez.
but the live-action movie does a better job of covering the first book.
Okay.
It's okay. If you like the book and you don't want to watch it live action, you want something in the art style of the book, watch it. Okay, done deal. Won't be making my animated feature list for Versus Awards. So on the 25th, I went ahead and watched Venom finally.
Okay.
And I liked it. I was...
Nice.
I had been very resistant to it because Venom in the comics is so attached to Spider-Man, and I kept saying, doing it without Spider-Man, that just doesn't seem right. Because that was the crux of the darn character for most of it. So it just went to a different way where you got the guy, the aliens are taken to Earth after they've been captured and they're being used as experiments for cures and all this by this pharma tech asshole. And one of them escapes and latches on to Eddie, who is a reporter in the kind of investigative thing. And I felt like, when he got fired from his rag, he should just continue his show on YouTube, and he would have been fine. But because that's how it felt. But yeah, it was a fairly well thing. I really think that he does a good job playing Venom. I like the art style of it, though. Yes, when the two symbiotes were fighting at the end, it was kind of hard to tell one from the other.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it was pretty good overall, and it had a good setup for the sequel. Though I still feel like, I really do feel like he's a bit old for Carnage.
Oh, Woody Harrelson, yeah.
But still, Woody Harrelson's a good actor, and Dustin sold me the Steelbook, so when he mails it to me, I'll watch it. Then I watched Bad Taste, which is a Peter Jackson film about aliens invading and about these alien busters, and it's a horror comedy. And it's, for the most part, pretty safe for you to watch. Which a lot of early Jackson films are ones that probably iffy on your ability to watch. Like Dead Alive would be hard for you to watch.
Okay.
I don't know if you watched that one yet, but
Not yet.
Bad Taste only had one, because the aliens are throwing up, and they all throw it up in a big old bowl, and then they all start drinking from the bowl of throw up, and that part was hard for me because I was eating lunch at the time, and I was realizing, okay, you can't eat lunch while watching this film. But it's in general a fun film. It really is kind of fun. I like the design on the aliens, kind of almost a Monty Python look to them for the animations or the art design. So well worth at least checking out.
Okay.
And then Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive is just such a guilty pleasure film. I used to have the DVD and it got lost in the move. Then Dane was offering the Blu-ray cheap, so I went ahead and I got it. Again, and it just is fun. These people get invited to this tournament, martial arts tournament, and they have free-form martial arts battles, and they're all different champions of their style, and they kind of come to this Bruce Lee style in a dragon-type island where something shady's going on, and they got to figure that out while they're doing all the fighting in the tournament. It's just fun. It's just, you talk about action films that are just great action films. That one is a great action film, and it's enjoyable overall. It's just fun popcorn fodder.
Cool. All right. And how many more you got?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, don't forget, actually, we kind of skipped this earlier, but Movies Galore also included Gosford Park, which we both watched toward the end of the month. And also, I'm just going to go ahead and throw out there, I watched 3 different commentaries for that film, as well as the commentary for Secret of Nim. So I got a lot of commentaries done.
Oh, yeah. But, I didn't know whether we were going to cover that now or cover it when we talk about what we cover for Inside Movies Galore.
I mean, we watched in January. Yeah. We might as well mention it, So,
yeah. Well, go ahead.
Well, I mean, you can watch the episode.
We had a very long episode.
We did. We did. I warn you, it was a lengthy episode. But we had a lot of people on, and we had some very enthusiastic people on, and some not the... I didn't know it was going to be such a divisive movie.
Yeah, there were some people who downright hated it. It was kind of interesting.
But it's fun. So if you want to see a Movies Galore discussion with people on both sides of the spectrum... Okay, but why don't you go ahead and hit your next one, and then I'll do my last one. And
well, these two I got to do together.
Oh, okay, go for it.
So I watched 2 fairly controversial anime back to back, and I had to watch them because they were there. And Airspecies Reviewer, that Steelbook was delayed and delayed and delayed. I didn't know if it was ever going to come, and it finally did. And you'll see that next pickup. I'm going to do 5 controversial anime, and it's going to be our topic that we'll do as a basic. It'll be a special pickup episode. But it's essentially about these people, an adventuring group that finds out that they can make more money by doing reviews of the different fantasy brothels that they visit. It's slightly censored in places, but not quite censored enough that I would consider it unwatchable. It's less censored than what you can watch out there, unless you can catch one of the not so legal cuts.
Ah.
So it's not heavily edited or butchered, but it was one that Funimation removed from their streaming, and Right Stuff sold it on their hentai section, which I disagree with. It was on the border, yes, but it was ecchi, not hentai. And still very good, very fun, highly... I don't usually like ecchi for the sake of ecchi, but this one had a lot of fun to it.
I want to see that eventually.
I mean, it was fun, the writing was fun, the characters were enjoyable. I liked it overall. There was not an edge of abuse or destruction, which we'll talk about that in a moment. It was just in generally a positive experience for the whole time. It was very well liked. So normally I'm iffy about ecchi these days, but this one I'm all behind. It was good.
Okay.
And then I watched redo of Healer. Whew, this series has some controversy. I got the uncensored version. That one I wouldn't necessarily say is hentai, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it should definitely have an adult rating. I like the series overall, which is a hard thing to say with considering what it's associated with, because it's very much associated with rape. And I cannot say that the main character is a good person, but I cannot say that the people he does things to are good people either. So it's kind of it's sort of like how doing terrible things to a person over time can then make them just as twisted and evil as the people who are inflicting it. He's a very interesting character. I hope they do a season 2. I want to see it. I want to see how this continues to play out. But it's not for everybody. And if rape is a triggering thing for you, don't watch this. Don't. Stay away.
Okay.
But if it's one that you can kind of sit in, you can understand the characters from this character, you cannot look at the main character and say, okay, this is a good guy. You can't look at the other characters around and say they're good guys, but that you can kind of see people getting what they deserve in the end. A lot of karma back in.
Okay.
But still, pretty good series.
Cool.
If you can deal with the...
Good to know. All right, so my last one, I'm going to cheat a little bit, because this one, when my brother and I started watching it, I told him point blank, I was like, I want to finish this in January. And of course, we got delayed on the last 3 episodes and finished it early in February, but especially because of the imbalance of numbers here, I want to go ahead and throw it in, which is a really cool show. Speaking of movies that are shows that actually feature deaf actors, more of them are getting work nowadays. James Caverly is actually deaf. He plays a deaf character named Theo, who is the son of the Dip King Teddy Dimas, who's played by Nathan Lane, in a wonderful little Hulu original series called Only Murders in the Building. Have you heard of this one?
No, but I like the title.
I do too, and it's actually co-created, co-written by Steve Martin and produced by the 3 stars, which are Steve Martin, Martin Short, and of all people, Selena Gomez. And the 3 of them play people who, for this, that, and the other reason, are living in a very hoity-toity, upper-class Manhattan apartment building, along with Teddy Dimas and his son, and various other individuals. We also meet a bassoonist who's played by Melissa Leo, and ends up having a pretty big role in the story. And basically, the 3 of them all have a fateful day where they get in the elevator together. They don't know each other yet. And this young man named Tim Kono also gets in the elevator, and they don't know him. Uh, and then a fire alarm happens, and they all have to rush out of the building and converge on a restaurant where they find out that they all three listen to the same podcast, which is a true crime podcast by Tina Fey's character about a murder in Oklahoma. And so they meet and geek out about this podcast, and they go back into the apartment together, and they learn that a murder has happened during the fire alarm.
Oh.
And they will go in, and they're like, let's go check it out. And it turns out it's young Tim Kono laying on the floor with a hole blown in his head. And they set about creating their own true crime podcast to solve the murder in their building. And it's a great setup, and it's a delightful series, really, really well thought out, well paced, well plotted. There's some really interesting and random cameos. Sting is in there. Jane Lynch is in there. Sting plays himself. Jane Lynch actually is in there as Steve Martin used to be a cop on a TV show called Brazos. Jane Lynch played his stunt double. And I just think that's a hilarious concept. But anyway, really fun show. They recently announced season 2. Can't wait for it. It's going to be good.
Well, one thing I can say is Jason Statham has no standing to be looking down on comic book films. I did watch the Death Race remake and all of its sequels.
Is he in all of those?
Just the first one.
Okay.
And essentially, future private prisons become more crazy, and they develop these death races, which they charge like high rates on pay-per-view and all that. I've never watched the original Corman ones, which I need to, but they're expensive, so I'm not going to in the near future. But and of course Statham is arrested for a crime he didn't commit and then put in jail and da 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 da. The main thing goes around this guy named Frankenstein, which is this supposed really popular racer, and the idea though is if you can win 5 of these death races, which is kind of like a dark version of Mario Kart, you then go free. So
so like Mario Kart married with Suicide Squad, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of like Mario Kart, and then we add on to it. Maybe a little Escape from LA.
Or Running Man, maybe?
Running Man, maybe.
Yeah.
It's an okay series. Death Race is they're all fairly decent movies overall. They're not bad. They're not great, but they're fun popcorn films.
Right.
And 2 and 3 are the lead up to the first movie. So 2 and 3 are prequels. It actually works out quite well. I mean, 2, you get to see kind of the birth of the Frankenstein character and the birth of the death race. Then 3, you get to find out what happens to Frankenstein and the events that lead to Jason Statham having to take over the role.
Okay.
And then Death Race Beyond Anarchy is in the far future from that, where it is very much Escape from LA, where you have a agent dropped in. They just rip off an entire section of the country, and then that's just made into a massive prison, and then you have a Death Race tournament there. So, again, not a bad thing. I really need to get the 2 original films. It's just like Death Race 2000 and Death Race 2050. They're just expensive, so I do want to get them. And then finally, Hotel Transylvania. I actually had a busy day. The last day of the month, I watched Death Race 2 and 3, Death Race Beyond Anarchy, and Hotel Transylvania 4.
Hotel Transformania.
Yeah, and it was unnecessary is probably the best term. I mean, it wasn't a terrible film. I mean, essentially, Drac is going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who plays him really did a good job of mimicking the voice of Adam Sandler. If you're not really listening hard for it, if you didn't know
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't Adam Sandler, then you could be reasonably fooled.
Mm-hmm.
Again, most of the cast does return. I think there's one other that left.
Kevin James. Well,
But again,
both of them have deals with Netflix that got in the way
Yeah.
of being in an Amazon production.
And it was, like I say, it wasn't bad. And then, Drac's retiring. He's going to leave it to his daughter. But then he realizes that also means he has to leave it to his son-in-law. And so he ends up saying, well, only monsters can get it. But then they find this ray to be able to turn humans into monsters, and it turns monsters into humans. And so Drac has to, once again, go with his son-in-law to try and not hate him.
Yeah.
And then make amends, which
Right.
is reasonably okay, but unnecessary because they've already covered that.
Yeah.
It's just
So that's not going to be your animated feature pick of the year?
No, it was decent, but
Right.
I mean, like I say, it's not a bad one.
Right.
It's definitely not the worst animated feature I've seen of the year, but it's, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay at best.
Right.
Well, that was it. So I hope you all
Okay.
enjoyed this. If you have,
So we
hit that
both
like.
ended. That's kind of interesting because you talk about the voice cast mostly returned.
Yes.
So we both ended with Selena Gomez productions. That's kind of interesting. But
But it
yeah.
was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
So, I'd recommend it if you love the movies and you just want more of that world, then
Right.
definitely.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
Well, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. Kick that like and
Yeah.
subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.